Welcome everyone to Zoom into Books this afternoon. We are having a Spring Fling author celebration. This is a chance for you to meet our award-winning spectacular authors. And we have three fiction writers with us today. We have Rick Robinson, who has written a series of political thrillers. We have Tony Hilton, who has written a political thriller, and W.G. Bill Griffiths, who has written several thrillers. These guys have been writing for years, and they're some of the best authors you'll ever meet. So I'm going to ask, to start off, ask each one to talk about the inspiration for their books. And we're going to start with Rick Robinson.
Thanks, Kathy. I appreciate it very much, and appreciate being a part, and appreciate you being here to take a look at some of the authors that are offered by Headline Books. You know, I've been writing political thrillers now for, we were talking about it the other night. I started writing coming up with the idea on a very cold opening day, I think 13 years ago, because it reminded me of that because this year it was snowing again on opening day in Cincinnati. I was thinking back to it being that long ago, that the last time it snowed on opening day was when I first started writing my first political thriller. And the one thing that I always want to try and do in a political thriller is to try to make the realism of the politics seem like what is going on. I always like to say that when you read one of my novels, I want you to know what it's like to be on the campaign bus. So along with that, the other thing that I always try to do, the thing that inspires me or the thing that touches me, the thing that grabs me and gets me writing a particular book, is that something that catches my eye in the news, something that happens in real life, something that is actual. I like using actual places that I've been to as the scenes take place. So it's that kind of a wrap that I end up doing. This book that I have out now, the current in the Richard Thompson series, is Opposition Research. And gosh, if you did, I don't know if anybody was paying attention, but there was a campaign that just went on recently. Everybody was doing opposition research. Everybody was doing all the things that as I was growing up in politics, doing opposition research was even so far out of bounds, so far out of bounds by our standards back then. That's what kind of grabbed my mind and grabbed my eye. And two things that happened in this was, first was my wife and I had been to a lovely restaurant out on Huntington Beach, and I've written another book that had one of the restaurants out there featured on Huntington Beach, one of the places I've really come to love to visit. And it was an Italian restaurant. Bob, I'm sorry, but as we would say in Kentucky, an Italian restaurant. I know you'd say it a little different if you're New York guys, but it was an Italian restaurant. And so that was kind of the setting where this was all taking place. But the whole concept behind the book was, as Thompson and his comrades, Thompson is now no longer a member of Congress. He's now part of an opposition research firm that goes out and does opposition research on candidates. What would you do if you came up with that one piece of information that you probably didn't want to have? Wouldn't make a hill's worth of beans worth of difference whether or not that person was going to be a good congressman, a bad congressman, a good elected official, a bad elected official. Doesn't matter where he or she is going to, how they're going to act, but you found the silver bullet. What if you found that silver bullet and it really would be life-changing for the people involved? Would you use it? And that's what kind of happens in this. And from the very beginning, I think, as people read this book, the opening scenes that take place up and down the main drag on Main Street that leads out to the boardwalk in Huntington Beach, it's very clear that I am recreating Whitey Bulger. in one of the characters. I've created him a little different, not Irish, but you know, it's pretty much what Whitey was doing, hiding it in a small apartment. I have him in the little manufactured home community that's right there on Pacific Boulevard, right across from the ocean, and that's the whole idea. But if there is that thing, if there is that is going, that's what I look for. The other thing that I would say is that this book is Bob has been kind enough to point me out a couple times that I got to remember the 11 herbs and spices in my writing. And one of the things I remembered this time when I was writing it and had so much fun writing the opening chapter was writing with all your senses. It's to the authors that are listening here today, when you write with all your senses. The opening scene takes place in Little Italy. And again, a historical event where John Gotti became the boss of bosses, and the hit that happened, I fictionalized that hit happening in Little Italy, and the sights and the sounds and the smells of a restaurant that Kathy and I happened to go to when we were up there for one of the book festivals. So that's the latest book. That's what's out there, and I'll turn it over. Kathy, who's next? Who's jumping in on the next spot?
Well, Tony Hilton, next located in Kentucky. Like he said, Tony's in northern West Virginia. And Tony's written an amazing book about an election a few years ago. So Tony, if you'd like to tell us your inspiration and a little about yourself, please do.
Thank you, Kathy, and thanks for having us and putting this together, and thanks for those that are watching. My affinity for journalism and the newspaper business started when I was about 2 months old, and my mother took me to the Logan Banner in southern West Virginia, where my dad was sports editor, and an old grizzled fella came out from the back shop with a roll of ink and a piece of newsprint, put the ink on my foot and put a footprint on the newsprint, and I was hooked from that day forward. Enough is about a small town newspaper publisher who takes on a corrupt political machine, and the political bosses take exception to a principled brand of journalism and burn the paper to the ground and hatch a plot to murder him on a deserted country road. The essence of Enough is about the positive impact a newspaper can have on a community by covering not just the politics, but the school PTAs, the civic clubs, the churches, youth activities, and high school and youth sports. And on the other side, it shows what a corrupt political machine can do to a community, can reach into every aspect of it, corrupt it, steal money, and just really hurt the community. And these two forces come together. And as you can see over my shoulder, that's the Lonsville Crier being burnt to the ground. So that's an introduction that we have. It's set in the spring of 1960. And when you look at West Virginia political history, that is the pinnacle, because John Kennedy and Hubert Humphrey were running for the Democratic presidential nomination, and West Virginia was pivotal because John Kennedy had to prove he could win being a Catholic in a highly Protestant state. And he makes a cameo appearance, visits the Lonsville Crier staff. But we talk about news gathering in a small town. We talk about political corruption in a small town, how jobs are traded, how votes are bought, those kinds of things. And I have been told that it gives a real insight into what politics was in southern West Virginia in the 1960s. I don't get into fake news, but that's a lexicon has become part of our, that's a term that's become part of our political lexicon in recent years. And I might add that it didn't start with President Trump. According to Mount Vernon historical records, George Washington didn't run for re-election in 1792 because he was getting bad press. So problems between the press and presidents and public officials has been with us for quite a long time. This book leads into the next one, which might be published this year. And I quote from I think it's a 1868 Chicago Tribune editorial that says it's a responsibility of a newspaper to report the news and raise hell. Well, the title of the second book is "And Raise Hell." So hopefully that will help us appreciate what community news journalism has been to the country and the importance of trying to get it back. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Tony. And I can assure everyone, all three of these books are excellent reads because I only publish excellent books. So that's my top priority, and all three of these gentlemen are award-winning authors too. Next up, we have Bill Griffiths. Bill has written several excellent books too. And Bill, if you'd like to share your inspiration for Time Trove, I know we have Methuselah's Pillar, Time Trove, and Falcon, right? No, Talons. Talons. And you need to unmute your microphone, Bill, please. Bill has been with us at several events too. So if you'd like to share your inspiration, Bill, please go ahead.
Well, first of all, Kathy, thanks for having me on. This is really an honor here. And I hope that this is all being done on my cell phone. So I hope that I don't get any calls, but if I do, I'll remedy that quickly by just hanging up. So Time Trove is, that's this guy right here. Time Trove is the sequel to Methuselah's Pillar. So I guess I got to say a little bit about Methuselah's Pillar. The idea of Methuselah's Pillar is Methuselah's Pillar is an actual artifact that I discovered that is information that was given to Methuselah by his 7 times great-grandfather, Adam. And according to the legend, Methuselah's Pillar wound up in the hands of Moses. So it's like, whoa, wait a minute. You mean Moses had an artifact that had information dating back to the Garden of Eden? Well, you know, suppose some of the plagues that Moses put on Pharaoh, you know, the Egyptian army was the most powerful army on earth, and Moses was able to somehow single-handedly take them apart with miracles, plagues, and things like that. Suppose some of that divine help came by way of information that was handed down. And what if that information was found today? What kind of trouble would that cause? So that's what Methuselah's Pillar is about, the trouble that it causes and what gets done with it. But then I came up with the flip side of that into the sequel, because Methuselah not only had information that wound up in Moses' hand, but Methuselah, according to legend, was the oldest person that ever lived at 969 years. So was there information on Methuselah's pillar that allowed him to enjoy that long age along with the rest of his family, all of the patriarchs during that time? And if that's true, what if it was a recipe? What if on Methuselah's pillar, on that artifact, what if there was a recipe for all of those hundreds and hundreds of years that they had extra in their life? And according to what you can read in the Bible, you see that the people that had those years, like Adam, like Methuselah, they didn't die of natural causes. Something like Methuselah drowned, for example. So how long would he have lived if he didn't drown? So the premise of Time Trove is that this recipe for immortality is discovered and on the pillar itself by the central character, who is this Samantha Conway, who's like this female Indiana Jones type character. And I was wondering, okay, so you have a recipe. She finds a recipe. So I had to come up with a recipe that is impossible now to come up with. So I was like, okay, so let's see. You got to put your central character through nightmares, through hell. So if I'm going to do that, I need a recipe of things that are just going to be very difficult for her to get a hold of. So first thing I thought of was, okay, how about an extinct flower? So I started researching extinct flowers, and I came up with this Russian scientist, Russian team actually, who wind up going to the Kolyma River in Siberia and finding seeds to prehistoric flowers. And they bring the seeds back and turn them back into flowers. Now, this is not the fiction part. This is real life. I'm doing the research, and I'm finding that Svetlana Yashina and her team brought back seeds from 125 feet down in Siberian permafrost along the banks of the Kolyma River. And these seeds wound up turning into, they brought them back, 32,000-year-old seeds they brought back. I was like, okay, this is beautiful. This is perfect. So my character, Samantha Conway, has to meet this real life scientist, Russian scientist, Svetlana Yashina. So that means, of course, I have to meet Svetlana Yashina. So I wind up trying to email her, trying to write her, trying to email the journals that were writing about this event. I got absolutely nowhere until I went on a Russian dating site. And on the Russian dating site, I put in a profile that said, I'm not here to marry any of you girls, but if you could, please, get me an interview with Svetlana Yashina. I will pay you handsomely for it. You'll have a great time for a week in Moscow, stay in a palace, whatever you want. The response was pretty huge, and I wound up, somebody wound up getting me the interview with Svetlana Yashina. So flew over to Russia. Now at this time, the Renegade Writer TV show, which I was asked to do a TV show where I'm followed on a research trail. So they wind up coming with me to Russia, and they filmed the whole thing, the whole flight, everything that it turns out my central character needs to do. So that wound up being a lot of fun, way too much fun, really. And then all of the information that I had was now, what the central character winds up doing in the book. And the Russian scientist, one of them, casually says to me, well, yeah, we found other things besides seeds in the permafrost. I'm like, really? Like what? It's like, well, there were the cadavers. I said, cadavers? You found humans? 32,000-year-old humans? It's like, yes. Well, I mean, what did you find out about them? Does this change what we know about human migration? Well, we really couldn't find out. We were afraid. There was a lot of them there. It was a whole clan. They had all died, probably of exposure, possibly of the common cold, but maybe they ran into something that the rest of our species has not yet run into. Some sort of virus, something. And we didn't want to do the forensics on the cadavers in our lab and wake up something that we might not be so happy we woke up. I'm like, okay, my jaw at that point was on the ground. And then I'm saying to myself, I'll wake that damn thing up in the lab. So that's the next book now that's coming, that I'm writing right now. I'm finishing up on it. It's, I said to him, these cadavers, do they have a nickname? And he says, well, yeah, we call them ice mummies. I said, okay, that could be the title of the next book, Ice Mummies. So there we are with those three guys.
That's great, Bill. I know that you do a lot of research. All three of you do a ton of research for your books. I know Rick worked behind the scenes in Washington for his background stuff. And Tony owned a newspaper in southern West Virginia. So people need to realize when you read these books, these guys really get their facts together. It's fiction taken from fact. And that's what always makes a really good book. For those of you who have just joined us on Facebook Live, we're here this afternoon talking with award-winning authors Rick Robinson, Tony Hilton, and Bill Griffiths about their novels and forthcoming books. And right now we're going to talk about some of the events that you all have done. We've put together some photos. People don't realize how many events that you all do in person. And since the pandemic, hopefully our in-person events are coming back. And that is the author's opportunity to get out and meet the public. And if you'll, let's look at the next slide, please. Rick, if you'd like to tell us about some of these pictures that you see. You're muted, Rick.
These are some of the different places that we've been along the way, and in the different places of signing and things of that nature. I think down in the lower left-hand corner is probably one of my I've run into on the road a couple times, and probably with undeniably one of the nicest human beings that has ever walked the face of the earth is Henry Winkler. Winkler is, you find a lot of celebrities that write books, and they usually have somebody who has been a ghostwriter for them. And when they show up at these shows, I don't think have the appreciation for what it takes that goes heart and soul into a book. And you can tell that sometimes by the way they treat their fans and by the way the people that walk up. At this particular event, Winkler was not scheduled to be at the American Library Association. And out of nowhere, he just shows up in a booth, they announcing he's supposed to be there for an hour. He's supposed to be on a train to New York at a certain time. He walks in as the place is closing. The line suddenly forms. It's going to be longer than an hour. He sits there and absolutely everybody comes through, gets an autograph. Everybody comes through, gets a picture. I actually heard his publicist lean over his shoulder and say, "We've got to get a train." And he leaned back and going, "We can get another train. Everybody gets a picture. I'm not leaving till everybody's done." Prolific in his children's novels, but also for my favorite book, he's and we've run across each other a couple of times this way. is that he loves to fly fish. He's a big trout fisherman, and has written a novel called "I Never Met an Idiot on the River." And it's brilliant. It's fun. It's a great read. But and each time I've called, we've been there, I've tried to tempt him away from whatever he was doing by saying, you know, Henry, he was down the first time I met him. We were down in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and I'm like, you know, we're only about an hour and a half from the Cumberland River. I think we could probably make it. And I think I truly was that close to getting him to skip his flight back out to California to go fishing that day. Caddy corner from that up in the right-hand corner was a sweetheart of a guy who supported me from the very beginning when I started this, a guy that I went to college with, Don McNay, whose last book, Brand New Man, was about losing all of the weight that he had gained over the years, and unfortunately died tragically of a heart attack right after the book was released, just for the strain on his heart. Below that is Sissy from
Family Affair.
Family Affair. There we go. I'm not that old, I forget. And then the middle one underneath there was the book that I talked about. That's actually, I think, Kathy, I'm looking at that shirt and the age of that shirt. I think that might be the first night we met.
I think it is.
I think that's the first night that I met Landau Murphy, who was the winner of season 6 of America's Got Talent, a book that I absolutely refused to write. And Kathy forced me to come down and meet the guy, and we both became instant friends. And he was such a great performer and such a genuine human being. And what's funny is such a funny guy, just a humorous, funny fellow that it just became one of those things where I had to write it. I had to write the book, and to this day, we love getting together. We love whenever he's performing somewhere, I try and get a chance to see him. He's still trying to convince me to wear dreadlocks on stage and then go out as he's singing a song and I act like I'm performing and he's pantomiming in the background. And I'm going, Landau, I just don't think we can pull that one off. I think the audience will know. So he's actually said that at the American Library Association next year that we shouldn't get a booth. We should just get a stage, Kathy, for all of the entertainers.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
You've now signed to the contract that we. So Bill, so Tony, get your gear out, man. We're going to have to get the band back together. So,
and
but again, everybody asks me what's Landau like, and I always say exactly like he is on TV. He and Henry Winkler are two of the most genuine people that I've ever met in my life.
And that middle photograph at the top is, that's you in the author autographing area at Book Expo America. I believe that's 2012.
Yeah, that's Manifest Destiny. That's the book that
Yes.
that every author hopes they get the movie deal until they get the movie deal, and then they realize nobody ever raises money for the movie deal. So that was my movie deal book. So
It was exciting.
They
That's
got a movie
sure.
option, but nobody ever, they didn't get the they were trying to there was a guy in California who was trying to make it into the series into a BBC special, a longer series of episodes into that, and
It would be good.
God love him, he tried, but and it actually had some nice people associated with the project. Had one of the writers from I can't think of the name of the movie now, but Academy Award winning movies, and Academy Award winning actress, some other people that had actually affiliated with it, but they still couldn't raise the money to get it moving. Deer Hunter, the guy who wrote Deer Hunter was going to do the screenplay, and all these different people associated with it. But like with a lot of these deals, movie deals become options become pieces of paper after a couple of years.
Well, I think that has changed a little bit because of the pandemic. I think a lot more authors have been picked up for movie deals because everybody's been live streaming for a year. So they've been picking up talent. So we still put our books out there for playwrights and film companies. And the picture in the upper left is when you won the grand prize in a book festival, and we went to Hollywood to accept.
Oh, I was trying to remember what that one was. I could not remember what that one was. What that particular picture was. I'll let you do the reminding of me on that one. But
yeah, that's in Hollywood, and it was the DIY book festival and film festival. They combined them.
And we were there with Dee Snider and Carl Weathers.
Right.
Carl Weathers, who played Apollo Creed.
That's right. That's right.
I'm thinking Bill Withers. Bill's got me going and Dee Snider, who was from Twisted Sister. His son actually won the movie award for producing a short film, in which Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, if you remember the long orange hair, actually played Death. And Death was playing a game of chess with an old man, was the theme of this short movie.
It was amazing. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now this is, I put these in, Rick, because sometimes people don't understand what goes on behind the scenes.
There is a little bit of fun. After I didn't talk Henry Winkler into going fishing with me, as you can see from the look there, I did go fishing. Up in the left-hand corner, that's with my son at Josh Robinson at one of my signings. But the other two are Kathy's daughter, Ashley. Bill, weren't you there when we were pushing Ashley around on the cart? I believe.
Yeah, I believe I took that picture.
I think you took that picture, and that's when we were actually next to Henry Winkler. The one thing about being cool about that is you're in the booth next to Henry Winkler. The bad thing for Bill and I was that we were in the booth next to Henry Winkler.
Right.
Nobody was there to see us.
But we had fun.
So we started seeing if we could push Ashley around on the book toting cart.
Right.
And there's me giving critical analysis to one of her paintings that she was doing at, I think that was the Holiday Mart that we did a couple years ago. So, yeah, we do like to have a little bit of fun around these as well. So.
Oh, we do. We do. Thank you, Rick. Let's go to the next slide. Tony, you need to unmute your microphone, please.
I'm sorry. That's
all right.
I shut myself up, and that's something
Tony's book came out last year or year before last, and he only got to a few events before all the events were shut down. So, Tony, do you know where these pictures were taken?
Well, I think this one, the one in the upper left, that might have been at Pipe Stand. I'm not certain.
The one on the left is in Charlotte at the Southern Christmas Show.
Okay, all righty. Yeah. The one in the upper right is the farm show in Charleston, and folks from West Virginia will recognize the symbol of West Virginia University, the Mountaineer that stopped by to visit with us and say hello, which was a real plus for us. The farm show is an interesting show. The traffic was much more than I expected. The funny thing about me doing a book signing or a presentation in West Virginia is that people hear what the book's about and everybody swears it happened in their home county. They know people involved in buying votes, or they had relatives that ran for office. It is incredible, and this is true whether I'm in Parkersburg or Beckley or Hinton or Logan or just anywhere, they all believe it happened, that the book was written about their home county. I get a real chuckle out of that.
That is amazing. And the middle picture is a pipe stem at the wholesale show.
Yes.
And people watching might not realize that Headline Books travels all across the country to do some of these major shows. And the pandemic, we were totally shut down in 2020, and it's just now starting to open up. And we will be at the West Virginia Book Festival in Charleston, West Virginia, the end of October. And we also plan to be at the Southern Christmas Show in November in Charlotte, North Carolina. So hopefully you'll, everyone watching will put those on your schedule and come and meet the authors. Let's go to the next slide, please. Bill, I know that you do a lot of traveling and you had that TV show, and you show what most writers go through when doing their research for their books. So would you like to tell us about these photos?
Well, I can see that the one that is in the upper right-hand corner, that's Sicily. So I needed to figure out how to steal a mummy. So from a Sicilian catacomb. And I just didn't know how. How do you steal a mummy from a Sicilian catacomb? So I went there to find out. And I did find out. And the people in the picture there with me, that's in the middle, that's my daughter, Summer, who is my beautiful assistant / daughter. And next to her is my son, Luke. And yeah, they all came along to Sicily for this. The middle picture down below is, we were talking about a book, an upcoming book, Kathy, that I have to go over with you. And the woman in the middle next to me is Rochelle Simon, and I'm writing a book with her that has to do with well, it's sort of a drama that starts in New York and winds up in Tanzania, and so that's another trip. And up in the upper left-hand corner, you have the girl in the middle is Caitlin Stanley, and next to her is Corey Adams. And they make up the film crew that went with me to Russia in tracking down the Russian scientists.
That's amazing. And was this picture taken at Thriller Fest in New York?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was. Thriller Fest was actually, you know, they asked me to speak on research. So I came in like maybe 5 minutes late. I was number 7 on a 7-person panel. Everybody was very well dressed and very well credentialed. I was in a t-shirt, cargo shorts, and hiking boots, and came in a little late, and they were like, "Oh, so glad that you made it," you know, sarcastically. And then everybody that was on the panel had a friend in the FBI and the CIA and the White House and the military. Everybody had friends that they did their research through, and they all had secret websites that, you know, we have this subscription to this particular website, which helps us out. You know, you need special codes, all this stuff. So they got to me, and the place was packed, and at that point, asleep. And the moderator's like leaning on her hand, and she says, okay, W.G. Griffiths, your books are well researched. So where is your friend from? You know, what sources do you have? Somebody in the police, perhaps, or what secret website do you go to? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. If my character jumps out of a plane, I jump out of a plane. That's how I do the research. And then somebody raised their hand and said, hey, I read this book at this particular point, and I felt like I was right there. Did you do that? I said, yes, I did. And then another hand, another hand, another hand. Next thing you know, everybody's awake. It's all buzzing. It's like a press conference. And then it's over, and I'm trying to get out of there. And a guy says from behind, he goes, excuse me, wait, not so fast. He introduced himself as, I'm Gary Grossman. I'm a producer from the History Channel. How would you like to do a reality show? I was like, you're joking, right? He says, no. I just watched this, and the research that you do in firsthand, everybody is all over it. They love it. So that's how that all started.
That's fantastic. I knew you told me that story. Let's go to the next slide, please. I think the top middle slide is the TV show. Is that right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, it is. And episode 1, the first draft of episode 1 is completed, and you can actually view it if you go to my website. Maybe I'll send it over to your website somehow.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Upper left is actually that hammer that is in my hand is a hammer that was used on the moon during the first Apollo flight.
Really?
Yes. That's I'm standing over at the NASA exhibit there, and that thing was heavy. I guess on the moon it's not so heavy, but right there that was pretty heavy. And there you go, Henry Winkler to the right. Wow, everything that Rick said about Henry is absolutely true. I heard him say that same thing when his publicist was saying, you know, the place is closing. There were still like 50 people online or 100 people online, and she said, yeah, we're kind of closing. You're gonna have to speed this up a little. And he said, no, not speeding it up at all. He took his time with each person, giving everybody a hug or a handshake. I'll tell you what, I was so inspired by seeing how he handled every individual person. I was humbled by it. Like, and then down below, yeah, that's Landau. He was everything that Rick said. He was unbelievably funny. Afterwards, we went out to eat, and he was the whole time we were laughing. It was great, really great guy.
It's a wonderful group, and it's always so much fun when we can get together. But I think we can stop the slides now. Thank you. I'd like for each of you to, I know everybody's working on a new project. We have touched on forthcoming books, and I'd like for the audience to know that these authors do speak. They will come and speak to your group, either in person or virtually. I believe all 3 of them do virtual visits too. So Tony, I'd like for you to tell people how to get in touch with you, please.
Okay. I have a website, www.tonyhylton.com, and that gives information on address, email, that type of thing. And my presentation deals with how we got to the point of freedom of the press, what the founding fathers went through, and the fact that they decided that there needed to be an independent, non-governmental watchdog on public officials. And that independent watchdog is the press. Some would say they've fallen down on their duty lately, but hopefully they'll come back and we'll again see a press that's strong, truthful, and unbiased. And I would welcome that. The term fake news got traction because the press got sloppy and would make a mistake every now and then in a story and hurt their own credibility. Reporters don't check out facts, and I was once a university journalism professor and taught freshman journalism. Many of the reporters today would flunk that course. But I'll be glad to make a presentation. It will go into the book itself and go into a bit more about community journalism and a little bit about some shady politics. So it's www.tonyhylton.com.
Thank you, Tony. Bill, would you like to tell people how they can get in touch with you?
Well, yeah, probably the easiest way is to my website is wggriffiths.com. And you could always email me at wggriffiths@gmail.com. It's pretty simple. And I think the website also has my phone number. So you can get in touch with me with the phone number as well. I don't know if I...
Rick, I know that you've just about finished your next book. We're still
the next book. So for years you could hire me, and you can still have me to come in to do either come in and talk about a book or talk about this book or that book. I have a presentation that's called "Everything I Ever Wanted to Learn About Politics." I learned from watching The Godfather. That explains everything in politics based upon anything that goes on in Little Italy. So that's the type of thing that I normally do. But recently I've determined, much like Henry Winkler, that I like fish much more than politicians. So the new book, which is just about done, I keep telling that to Kathy, and I keep trying to convince her that we really are just about done. But the next book will be a book that takes a lighthearted look at beginning fly fishing, and give instruction and tell people how to get involved in the sport of fly fishing, how to go out and do it. We've had some wonderful people that have offered assistance in that, some Pulitzer Prize winners, some New York Times bestsellers, all of whom have offered essays and other things on fly fishing. So I would really not be the person that would want to hire me to come in and talk about to teach fly fishing. But if you want to invite me over to your fly fishing club to go out with your group one day and sell books and talk about it, that I could do.
That sounds great. Right. And Rick also has a website, and if you can't find a contact for any of the authors, just go to the headlinebooks.com website. You can email me. And I hope that you all have enjoyed this afternoon. We want to thank you all for joining us. And thank you, Tony, Bill, Rick, for joining us today.
Well, good to see you again, Tony. Good to see you again, guys.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Peace.